Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. Welcome to Boro Fan TV and the Monday Night Show with me, James Hutchinson. Joining me again are David Campbell and Joe Scott. Welcome to the show, lads.
Hello, mate.
You okay, boys?
Yep.
All good.
Good. Well, it was good for the Boro on Saturday. We're going to take a look back at Saturday's comeback victory over Wycombe. We're also going to review the championship season so far, which reaches its halfway point. And on top of that, we're going to look at the transfer window, which has just opened in the past few days, as well as taking a look ahead to Saturday's FA Cup third round game against Brentford. As always, Boro fans, we rely on your input, so your thoughts to myself and to the lads are most welcome. Get in touch with us tonight on the Monday Night Show. So, David, we'll start off. After defeated Hillsborough last week against Sheffield Wednesday, probably the last thing we wanted to do was fall behind to an early goal at Wycombe. But that's what happened. What was your reaction when that goal went in?
You just fear for the worst, don't you, as soon as the goal goes in that early doors. It surprised me once we conceded. I thought Wycombe might have shut up shop, but they kept the game quite open still, so it allowed us to get back into the game. But yeah, first thought was like, oh, here we go again. We started sluggish, but we responded really well.
Yeah. Hi, Mark. Hope you're enjoying the show, mate. Hope you're well. Joe, we cleared our heads after a few minutes and gradually got on top. And Marcus Brown, one of three players brought back into the side by Neil Warnock, marked his first start in 14 months in a Boro shirt with the equalising goal. And after the game, Neil Warnock commented on his attitude. What did you make of those comments?
Yeah, it'll do wonders for Marcus Brown's confidence going forward, because obviously there were some questions, when we first brought him to the club, that his attitude was going to be a bit of a problem. But ever since Warnock came to the club, he somehow managed to get Brown on the right track, even though he had this little problem earlier on with an injury, which kept him out for most of the season. But getting the goal against Wycombe certainly did wonders to his confidence for that game.
Yeah. And we're going to come on to my friend and yours in a moment here, David. Marcus Tavernier, and as your exclusive stays here, good to see Tav back. We had a bit of a purple patch after Brown's goal, and it was capped off by Tav's goal. One of his trademarks, cutting in off the right flank, putting it away with the left. Great goal. He's got everything in front of him. He's certainly got a lot of the qualities to go on and really progress in his career, hasn't he, Tav?
He has. He just needs to add that consistency to his game, which I think all Boro fans have seen in glimpses how well he can do. But he just doesn't do it enough. But if he can add that consistency to his game, I think we've got a real gem. I mean, he's only 21. If he adds that consistency, you're looking at a Premier League player on your hands.
Definitely, yeah. Paul Scobie, a regular on the show, he's got in touch with us there and just said he predicted 3-1 on Saturday. Anybody want this week's lottery numbers? Yeah, definitely. I'll have them anytime, Paul. We're most welcome. Joe, after we went 2-1 up on Saturday, though, it became a bit of a battle, as Neil Warnock predicted before the game. And in that respect, the role and the work of George Saville and Sam Morsey became even more important, didn't they? They had a really important part to play in that victory at the weekend.
Yeah, because they pretty much helped out the defence pretty much all game. Because I think for the second successive game, I think both Dale Fry and Paddy McNair's defensive work would probably be called into question. So it was crucial that we had the likes of Morsey and Saville to help them out as well to help out the attackers as well going forward. Because I was going to mention as well the corner situation. I know I said on the last show that Wycombe were going to be a threat from corners in the sector, but we end up taking advantage of the corners, and that certainly would definitely win us the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we've all been critical of this season, David, on the show, about set pieces and Boro's lack of potency from them. But at the weekend, 2 goals from corners. What isn't a surprise is the delivery of Paddy McNair, and he was central to all of that, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's very consistent with his delivery. We all know Dale Fry isn't going to get many goals because he just doesn't attack it. So it's all about runners and getting people in the right areas, because Paddy's going to whip that ball in. and it's finally good to see it pay off, even though it was the smallest man on the pitch to get on the end of the first goal.
Yeah. And I was also going to ask you before that, David, as well. You mentioned earlier on about you thought Wycombe might have shut up shop, but if anything, it was quite an open game all the way through at the weekend. Did that surprise you that it was so open?
It did. On last week's obviously show, I predicted like a 1-0 win because I thought it's going to be tight, it's going to be battle, it's going to be aerial duels, but both teams got the ball down and were wanting to play the right way. And when we went 2-1 ahead, they could have quite easily equalised a couple of minutes later, but Bettinelli did the good save. And I think that set the tone then. We knew we had to continue with our game plan and attack because they were going to throw everything at it.
Yeah. John Collins been in touch with us and just said Paddy McNair's class. Joe, as David was mentioning there about the chances that Wycombe created, and despite us creating numerous opportunities, so did Wycombe in the second half, and it wasn't a game that you ever really felt totally comfortable in. And in a way, maybe Wycombe throw up some difficulties and challenges that you might not face against many other sides in the Championship, but the back four stood up to the challenge, didn't they?
Yeah, second half, and I was surprised there with Wycombe, because I mean a lot of people and a lot of fans around the country are tipping them to go down, but I've said before that they'll probably go down, but not without a fight, and they certainly showed that on Saturday. And I mean the amount of chance in the second half, I think the crossbar was Boro's best friend in that second half. In particular, the chances that Tapazzoli and Kashket had, the crossbar eventually came to our rescue, and I think we have to thank the crossbar on this occasion, and not Bettinelli this time.
Yeah. And David, I mean, after the first 2 goals were scored by players brought back into the side, the third one was as well with Chuba Akpom scoring from another Paddy McNair corner. What did you make of his display at the weekend?
I think he deserved the goal because he was lively throughout. He did the hard work in the build-up to Tab's goal, didn't he? And, I think he was always a threat attacking the players' opposition. So, I'm glad he got his goal, and hopefully that builds his confidence. The only problem I have with Briss and Akpom is we keep chopping and changing, even when they're scoring. Britt scored against Sheff Wed, and then the next game Akpom is in. And I think once a striker scored, you need to give him that run of games to get that confidence flowing. Chopping and changing him isn't going to do his confidence good, but it also doesn't help the midfield link well with the attackers.
Do you think part of the reason for that, though, David, is because the games are so closely together that maybe Neil Warnock feels as though he has to maybe give his front man a breather, especially when we only have a couple of centre forwards at the minute that are available?
You could possibly say that, but then you can't cry wolf when you're saying we're not scoring goals and we're not creating chances. So, they always say you never drop a striker when he's on form.
Yeah.
And playing 2 or 3 games a week, I don't think a striker would turn around and say no to that if he was scoring goals.
Yeah. Gareth Cole's been in touch with us. Thanks for watching, Gareth. He said Savin Morsey been class for us. Deco must have been working on set pieces. Warnock needs to be down for another season. Can see us getting playoffs this year. Maybe open wrong, just one step too back. We don't get players in the window. I'm going to look at the transfer window in a moment. John Moon's also been in touch and said, nice to see Boro pressing and taking shots in and around the 18-yard box. Previous Boro teams didn't do this. Tab's goal was an example of this. And funnily enough, Joe, in the past month, from going about being really critical about Boro not scoring enough goals, I looked at some stats at the weekend. I think we're only 3 goals behind Norwich over the season, and we're actually 1 goal ahead of Swansea. They're the top 2 of the division, and our goals for record compares quite well with them. What do you think's brought that change in fortune over the goals?
Probably it's just more about taking the chances, but it's compared to previous seasons when we tried to walk it into the goal. So Warnock must have said to them, if you see a chance, just take it, and that's what's been the big difference for us getting goals in the past nearly year and a half or 2.
I think on top of that, James, with the formation change has helped. Going from the wing backs to a back 4 allows us to get more bodies further forward. I think we were a bit too rigid with the 5. Do you think, Joe, with too many with the wing back situation, So having Johnson playing more advanced and Watmore as well, it's helped us create more chances.
Yeah, it definitely has. You know, you see from sometimes you can get with Spence, for example, and with Johnson. I think the wing back system will definitely work this time compared to what we've worked out with with either Pulis or Woodgate.
Yeah.
And John Moon's in agreement with you there about the formation. Do you also think possibly, David, it's some of the players that have been introduced over the past month, such as Duncan Watmore's had more game time and he's obviously chipped in with 5 goals. And is it possibly, looking at it from another angle, the teams that we've played over the past month, do you think that's also helped us get a few more goals on the board?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, James. Our start to the season, we always knew was going to be hard because of the games we had.
Yeah.
And I think over from November, we played teams more or less below us, so it has given us that chance. And we've, looking just even at the weekend, you had 3 fluid attacking players who can interchange in different positions. So it was giving us different options. And I think, obviously, because of that, it does create chances.
Yeah. No, good points, mate. David Richardson's been in touch with us again, lads. He said, not enough goals from the 2 strikers. Simple. We'd be ghost if it wasn't with the midfielders. We need more strike power bringing in. Obviously, there's the Ashley Fletcher situation. Hopefully, he'll be back very soon. But, George, you still think that's an area that we're lacking somewhat and we need more strength in depth?
Probably we could do with another attack-minded winger and another forward in this window, I think that could be the answer for us going forward, particularly which we'll get to with the transfer window in a sec. I think we do with bodies along the possibly one on the left wing and one possibly another like number 10 or number 9 going forward.
Yeah. And the only thing in a way that's a little bit disappointing, David, is we have to wait 2 weeks now for our next league games. It's obviously FA Cup at the weekend. And the next league game is Birmingham at home at the Riverside. Aitor Karanka should be in the opposing dugout. Do you think he still will be?
Yeah, I think he will. After the defeat on Saturday, I thought that was curtains for him, to be honest with you. But he seems to have ride the storm, and they're not going to be expecting much for their FA Cup game at the weekend, because I'm sure they've got someone like Man City.
Yeah.
So I can't see them acting after that result. It's like you said, it's a shame it's 2 weeks because there's no better time to play them. Their heads will be down. We've obviously just played them and beat them, so I think it would have been the perfect opportunity. But having said that, 2 weeks break might give us a chance to get our house in order and get a few players in ready for the game, potentially.
Yeah.
Plus the fact it's an early kick-off as well.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's the early game on the Saturday lunchtime. Yeah. Before we move on from the Wycombe game, Tez Nunn's been in touch with us, and thanks for watching, Tez. He said the formation, attitude, and wanting to go for it is making the players better. Warnock, real top manager that knows his stuff and knows what he needs. And I mean, Warnock, we've praised him a lot this season on this programme, but he's still, it doesn't cease to amaze me that we're halfway through the season now. We're still within touching distance of the playoffs. And this is a side which really isn't a great deal different to the one we had last season, is it, Joe?
No, it's pretty much like a combination of like Monk, Woodgate, and Pulis's players. And obviously, it's just Warnock's working his man management skills to build whoever was on the fringes and build them up to become better players. And that's, I think, the difference compared to the last few seasons with the squad.
Mm-hmm. And I think having the smaller squad helps, doesn't it, for man management? Because you can spend more time individually talking about the strengths and weaknesses and tactics.
Yeah. I know we're going to look at the transfer window a little bit further on in the show, but I think even today Neil Warnock's mentioned that he's got his targets and he knows that we'd like to bring in. But if he doesn't get them, well, that's so be it. That's it. I'll work with what I've got. And he's one of those managers that you know he will just get the most of what he's got at his disposal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, plus the fact that he's got a couple of under 23 players that he can build up around the squad as well.
Mm-hmm. And you would probably question that, James, beforehand, but because he's brought on the players like Dyke-Steele and Boro and Brown, it does, as fans, make you trust of what he's trying to achieve. So when he says, I'll just work with what I got, you don't really question it.
No. Ruth, thanks for watching the show. Ruth Dixon there. It's a great, resilient show at the weekend, which again isn't in dispute with this Boro side. Happy to see Tav getting amongst the goals, and it was a fantastic finish from young Tav at the weekend. Halfway point of the season's been reached now, David. We're 7th in the table, 1 point outside the playoff places. How pleased are you with that?
Over the moon. I mean, if you asked us at the beginning of the season, or this time last year, where you think we'd be in a year's time, you couldn't predict where we are now and how we're performing. Most importantly, not just the league position. I think there's only been 2 games off the top of my head where I think we've deserved nothing out of the games all season, which was Stoke away and Preston. Other than that, I think we've deserved at least a point or 3 points from the games that we've lost. So overall, I think the performances have been really good throughout the season and very consistent. Yeah.
And picking up on what Ruth said there, Boro Rich has also been in touch and said it's good to see that we now can believe it. We want to come back from going a goal behind. Previously, as soon as we conceded first, it was game over. And as with last week at Sheffield Wednesday, we went behind that night. We went behind on Saturday against Wycombe. But in fairness, in both occasions, Joe, I genuinely believed we'd get something from the games. Now, we did at Wycombe, didn't at Sheffield Wednesday, but that hasn't always been the case in recent history, has it?
No, definitely not. Definitely this part of the year as well, where we don't seem to come back from deficits, like even for just a 1 goal from many games. So I think it proves why there was Warnock's tactical management works in those situations. That if fair enough, we can go like 1 or 2 goals down in the particular game, but could very easily have the ability to come back and either get a win or take at least a point. So that's a big difference compared to seasons past.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on the season, James?
I'm more than happy with it because I'll be honest, at the start of this season, I thought just gradually build on what we achieved last year. And I think with the size squad we had, I would have been happy just to finish top half this season, I'll be honest. But
nice.
Having seen half of the season now and what's in that league, I think there's a real opportunity to make top 6 this year. I really do. And I purely put that down to Warnock, if I'm honest, because I think he's getting something out of those players which very few managers can at the moment. And I think he's the ace in the pack for us. And I think he's our little trump card. And I think he's the person that could maybe take us into the top 6 this season.
Do you know, I find it quite refreshing that quite a lot of the fan base is singing on the same hymn sheet this season. I've never really seen that. There's always been different expectations, but quite a lot of the fans seem to be on the same board this year.
Yeah. Is there anybody that's in the top 6 for you, Joe, at the minute that you think they're a surprise, or has it pretty much panned out how you thought it would at the top of the table?
I think Norwich and them was probably predictable. As far as a little higher up, I think Swansea have definitely improved from where they were last season when they just about got in the playoffs. They've been playing fluid attacking football all the way through the season, and particularly Reading as well. They've massively improved from, I think, the past 2 seasons. And I think their manager, Veljko Paunovic, has definitely got the right squad together, and they've got players that can produce quality to even progress up to the Premier League.
Yeah. I mean, David, I'm going to ask you in a second about who do you think could maybe, just to say, sneak up there, or who do you think there's a side to watch out in the second half of the season? Got a few points here which are quite interesting. Those Stephen Walker, thanks for getting in touch. Fresh from his loan spell at MK Don, so that's Stephen Walker. He just said, I don't think there's a team like us in the top 6. We've been very together more than most teams. I think the team spirit is key to that. It's a great point, Steve. And also, Pete Robbo's been in touch. Hope you're well, Pete. He said it's still worrying that our squad, if we get injuries, could struggle. And I think they're both fair points, aren't they, David?
Yeah, I think Pete hit the nail on the head there. We always knew a few injuries we could, we would struggle. You just touch wood, obviously, we stay injury free and you can build on it. I mean, if you can get 1 or 2 to run alongside that, but it's important to realise we've got Fletcher and Grant Hall coming back. So I think they're going to be like 2 new signs as well. Yeah. So, yeah, I know the squad's relatively short now, but we have got players coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But sorry, I did throw a question to you then, and we've moved on about this, but is anybody that you maybe see coming up on the rails, or maybe somebody to watch out for just outside the top 6 at the minute, David?
Yeah, I mean, Guesty touched on, and Joe mentioned it last week, and I couldn't agree more. I think Barnsley could be a bit of a dark horse. He seems to have them playing the right way, and they're a young squad who just seem to go out and attack. They don't have no fear, and they've kicked on from how they finished the season last season by staying up, and they just seem like they're enjoying themselves and going out and appreciating every game.
Yeah. And Joe, for you, down at the bottom, there's a real prospect that a big side could take the drop down to Division 1 and join Sunderland there next season. Who do you think's heading for the drop this season in the Championship?
Probably, as I said before, Wycombe would definitely probably be going down, but they're not going to go down without a fight. And probably the same for the likes of Rotherham as well. And then I think the last place, I don't know. I think Derby is just starting to improve now, and I think Forest are drawing ever so nearer towards it. So Forest could be a surprise contender to go down, but I'll probably wait till about February, March, so I know for definite who's potentially going to go down to League One. Looking at that table,
QPR are struggling as well, aren't they?
Yeah,
a bit. Yeah. And Birmingham as well, like you said, they're struggling as well as anything.
You often find, don't you, that there's a side that gets really dragged down into it that maybe haven't been hovering around the relegation zone, but just sort of get pulled into it. And both those two clubs that you've mentioned at the end there, lads, Birmingham and QPR, as sides that I fear for a little bit. John Moon's mentioned there about Derby County, and I think some Boro fans would maybe see that as poetic justice if they went down to League One. And then got to throw this to you from Kev Short. It's a little bit left field, but quite funny. He said, has anyone noticed that loads of the lads seem to have the same barber? Tav, Johnson, Brown. Maybe the team spirit is like when the Romanians all bleached their hair in the World Cup in the 1990s. Again, it's just all about the team spirit, isn't it? The lads, there's a few dodgy bandits there, but there you go. If it gets us 3 points, I'm not really bothered.
Well, it's going to get even worse now. All the hairdressers are shut. They're all going to just go for a no guard and get it all off.
The Hamza Chowdhury look all the way around.
Well, second half of the season's about to start, and what happens could well be influenced by what happens in the transfer market this month. So Luke has been in touch with us there and just said, who do you think Boro will sign in the January transfer window? As I said earlier on, Joe, post-match on Saturday, Neil Warnock mentioned that he didn't expect anybody to be signing, certainly before this Friday's pre-match press conference, sorry. Did you expect this? Did you expect us to make signings early in the window, or do you think it's going to go down to the wire as it usually does?
I think it's usually around midpoint where you start to tell if anyone's going to come in. So I'll probably be expecting some activity around that point. But I think the squad togetherness as a whole, I think that's what made Warnock realise that you don't need to go early for people in the market at this early stages. So I think it'll be around midpoint in the window or towards later on in the window where players do decide if Warnock decides to get the players in that he wants.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Steve Davis has mentioned, this man's name's been mentioned, I don't know how many times over the past month, Yannick Bolasie. He's a number one target. And obviously, Bolassie's mentioned, Grzycki's been mentioned a lot in the past week or so. I don't know if you saw the EFL show on Quest on Saturday night, and Neil Warnock's namesake, Stephen Warnock, was on. And he mentioned about Neil Warnock getting the most out of certain types of players, like Marcus Brown. And I was just thinking back to a player that's been previously linked with the Boro, who's had a few issues on and off the pitch. He's out to favourite Rangers at the moment. Jordan Jones, who plays out wide. You think possibly he'll be a cheaper alternative? That's someone that maybe Warnock could take a punt on?
Yeah, he's a Boro lad as well, isn't he? He's come from the academy, and yeah, like you said, we've been linked to him before. Attitude problems seem to rise every time you hear, but his name linked, and he's just come back from a big suspension, I believe, for breaking rules or what have you. But
yeah,
he's a winger. He's Boro lad. He's what we need. So if he's cheap enough, and if you know Warnock, if anybody's going to get the best out of him, you believe it's Warnock. But for me, I think Bolasie is our number one target. But I'd read something over the weekend where he'd spoken to a Premier League player And he said, look, I can't talk for a few weeks because I've just been brought back into the first team due to injuries. So obviously went on Google, started having a look, and the name that stands out is Kamil Grzycki. And then obviously this morning, it's come out that he's been made available from loan from Sam Allardyce. So obviously putting 2-2 together, I might be getting 5, reading too much into it, but I think he could be the number one target, Grzycki, along with Balassi.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Grzycki could use a move to the club like us to provide motivation, because I think he'll want to be in the Poland squad for the Euros coming up in the summer. So that we need to get first team football for him under his belt. And I've also seen a little bit in the media as well. It's not exactly doing the first team, but another one that can go to the under-23s is Stefan Barla from Barnet. He's been mentioned as well. Last window, he was meant to be going on a move to Benfica, but that didn't happen, and that sort of something done wrong with his mental health issues recently. But Boro can go back. I think Boro said Boro can go in for him because of can offer him the chance to get now under 23s and hopefully progress more.
I mean, yes, I don't know about you. I can understand the need to add players to the squad because it's obviously a lot of games are going to come thick and fast. But where do the likes of Balassi and Grzycki fit into the current side when we're winning games how we currently are?
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah,
and I think the thing with Balassi is he's so short of match fitness and games. It'd be asking a lot for him to go straight into the side and deliver. I think he would be one that you would probably have to give at least maybe a month before he'd be able to play in the first team. Have we got that time?
But I think Balassi's the case that he can probably might take a month for him to settle in, but if the likes of Grzycki, you could just throw in the deep end, so it'd be worth 6 and 2 frees there for either one of them if they do come in.
Kev Short's thrown another name into the ring there. Adam Reach. What about him? Would you go for him if it was on the cards, David? Would you be happy with him coming back?
Funny enough, me and the lads from football were talking about Reach at the weekend, and we all were in agreement that we'd love to have him back, and he's vastly improved since he was here. I mean, I think Karanka held him back when he was here. He didn't let him go express himself. But it's interesting, he's only got 6 months left on his contract, which I didn't realise. So, yeah, he'd be someone I'd like to definitely see back.
Yeah. And also, as well, I think I mentioned it on the last show about Christian Atsu from Newcastle. I think the original rumoured offer was like a £1.5 million deal, but he's got 6 months left on his contract in Newcastle anyway, so he could be another possible alternative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just before I move off the transfers there, I've just had a scanned off the screen there. What somebody's mentioned there about signings that Jonathan Woodgate made and Bowler, Dykesdale, Brown, and maybe, yes, they didn't perform for him, but now they are obviously under Warnock, and maybe in retrospect, Woodgate and the team behind those signings deserve credit for that. What do you say to that, David?
Definitely. It's just a shame he's not obviously around where he couldn't get the best out of them himself. But I think that's where we all were in agreement. He was always going to struggle to develop a player like that whilst trying to take his first managerial job on. So he would have needed experience. But the scouting team also need massive credit for that because they've obviously spotted something in him and now they're living up to the potential.
Yeah. So we'll leave the transfers there. Chris Sykes has just said before we leave about Adam Reach, said doesn't think it'll happen as he's free to sign for anyone at the end of the season, and that'll probably price him in terms of what he's asking for. But do you think he'll be after big wages in terms of like a signing on? Because obviously he'll go for a free, but do you think he'll be after big money? Because he's not been a Premier League player as such. He's just been at the Championship, and I think players have to be realistic at the moment with what's been going on in the last 12 months or so, that big signing on fees, big contracts, they're going to be a thing of the past now, aren't they, Joe?
Oh, yeah. I think with Reach, I think I can definitely see him staying with the same wages as he was at Shep Wed, because I'm not sure if they've still got a thing where they're not paying him at the moment because Sheffield Wednesday's recent financial troubles. But I think in terms of contracts and wages, I mean, if players are willing to take the cut, I mean, they could take the cup, but if they're not, they're not. So it just depends on what was the right wage for the right type of player, to be truthful.
Yeah.
I think the players are realistic of what the command. I think it's the agents who obviously are touting for bigger moves and signing on fees. And I think Stewart, who we were linked with in the summer, is a prime example for that. He was linked with loads of clubs, and I think his agent was just wanting way too much money and priced him out of the move.
Yeah.
Well, lads, weekend FA Cups come round again. David, in terms of your priorities, where does this game stand for you? Third round FA Cup against Brentford, where's it stand for you?
I know a lot of people will say, obviously, priorities are low, but a cup run lifts morale, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But forget of the lift of morale financially as well. If you can go on a bit of a cup run, I know we haven't got the fans in there, which brings revenue, but you get TV money and you get money for every round you progress into. So on that aspect, I think it is important to carry it on. If you can get a bigger team as well, it brings greater revenue. But I think you'll see a lot of changes. I think you the likes of, I don't think Bettinelli will start. I don't think McNair will start. There'll be a lot of changes come Saturday.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. Pete Robbo's been in touch again there and just said, forget the FA Cup, it'll be a weekend side, league's more important. And like David said there, Joe, we suspected it'll be a much changed side that takes to the field at the Brentford Community Stadium on Saturday, won't it?
Yeah, I think that David hit the nail right on the head there. I think there's one side of it where we don't actually want to care about the for the cup. Like Warnock said in one of his press conferences, that he doesn't want to take much interest in the FA Cup. But on the other side, the money bit comes into it, like more revenue for the club, like TV money or get money for round for playing a bigger side. I mean, I know it's an all championship side, but at least you can get more money put more money into the club during this time anyway. Then can get a good run in the cup, then rather concentrate in the league. So like I say, it can even work both ways.
Yeah, I think it was Matthew Richardson that put that question up earlier on that I was trying to recall. And he's also come up with another good point there, thanks Matthew, about the postponement of the Rotherham game means an extra fixture. Well, obviously, if we win against Brentford on Saturday, that means the Blackburn game on the 23rd would have to be called up as well. So do you think Neil Warnock will be quite pragmatic in a way, David, and think, do you know what, I can't afford to be losing too many league games here because of a cup run, and that'll maybe cloud his judgment in terms of the side he sends out on Saturday?
Yeah, Matthew's right. I mean, I can see it from the fixture league, and we all do agree the league is more important, and Warnock can understand we don't want too many games and postponements. But Gibson will be completely opposite. He'll want to get as much revenue into this club as possible, especially under the current, pandemic. So, I can take it either. If we win with a weakened side, it's just brilliant, isn't it? So,
I think the likes of Saul Bryn, who was on the bench last game, I think he'll probably be in for a start, because I think Stojanovic is out in the minute. You've got the likes of Spence probably starting, Coulson could start, Wood could start, even probably Roberts might be starting. All I can think about on Saturday. So I won't be surprised if it be that sort of squad that comes in on Saturday.
What about you, James? Would you like a cup run, or are you just focused on the league?
I think league's the most important thing, but it's like you say, I still hold the FA Cup in high esteem, and I would love us to go on a cup run. And I must admit, I would love to beat Brentford at the weekend. And I keep looking at, they've got Tottenham in midweek in the League Cup, and I think, as Paul Scobie's also mentioned here, they'll put their full team out for that, and I think they'll play a weakened team against us at the weekend. And I'm thinking that gives us an opportunity to win that game, but as you say, you don't want to have a massive backlog of fixtures, especially when you've got a smaller squad. So, given the choice of the two, get to maybe the 4th or 5th round of the FA Cup or make the playoffs, it's a no-brainer, really, isn't it, David?
Yeah. Do you also think, because it's a full championship fixture as well? If we were playing someone League One, League Two, where you can get a little bit excited, or Premier League, fans might have a different perception on it, but because it's just like another league game, to lower their expectations a little.
Yeah. I think if we'd have got a good draw, like you say, people would have looked at this game differently. But I think a lot of Boro fans could take or leave what happens at the weekend. I think people are more interested in what happens against Birmingham the following week.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, lads, give us your predictions for Saturday's game at Brentford. You can start first, Joe.
If it's going to be like they say, two weekend sides, because obviously Brentford have got the League Cup semi-final beforehand, so I think it's going to be quite an open game. But if I'm going to predict score-wise, I'm going to go for a 2-1 Boro win, I think.
Right.
Because it might be an open game.
Yeah. So it's got to be settled on the day, David. It's extra time and penalties, no replay. So what are you going for on Saturday, David?
Yeah, well, I didn't realise that till yesterday that there was no replay, so I think that works now, obviously, our favour. I can't call it, to be honest.
Oh, you don't want to?
Maybe because I don't want.
You don't want to, mate.
Yeah, usually you know how we're going to set up, don't you? But because both teams, it could go either way depending on who's the bravest in the team selections.
Yeah. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's going to be, you can probably tell by the selection of the teams before the game, and you look what sides are put out. Like you say, I don't ever want the Boro to get beat, but it wouldn't be the end of the world, I don't think, if they did on Saturday.
I just want to say that, James.
I know. Well, I'm going to go Brentford 3-1. I think Brentford will win, and we can then focus all our attentions on the league. But hey, if we win, brilliant. That'll be great stuff as well. So we'll see what happens, lads. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, everyone, that's it. We're out of time. We've got to make way for an important announcement, apparently coming from Downing Street pretty soon. So we're going to let you settle down and focus on that. Thanks for everything tonight. Thanks for all your contributions, as always, everybody. Great to hear from you, as it always is. Shout out to Olivia French, who's watching in Norton as well. Hope you're well, Olivia. Thanks to you all, and thanks most of all to David and to Joe. Great contribution as always, lads.
Yep. Thanks, mate.
Don't forget, everybody out there, keep it Boro Fan TV this week for all regular updates and previews from your favourite club. Until next week, from me, James Hutchinson, from David and Joe, good night and up the Boro.
Up the Boro.